Hey everyone, welcome to the Breaking Moment podcast. My name is Regine Bowe, and I am a social worker who wants to give you hope, encourage you, and help you feel less alone in your healing journey. This podcast is dedicated to helping you heal, learn, and grow to become a better version of yourself. Through education and personal experience, I will discuss topics around mental health and spirituality. So, let's get started on today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Breaking Moment podcast. I am your host, Regine Bowe, and I am recording this episode on Good Friday. So, when you guys listen to this, it'll be April 1st. So I just want to say happy holidays to you, happy Easter, Good Friday, and happy April Fool's Day. I hope we get good weather because it's been nasty and raining, but I believe on Sunday it's going to be nice. So if you're, Easter egg hunting with your kids or your family, I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that your holidays season is well. If you are entering the holidays and you are alone and you don't have family, you are frustrated, you are sad, you are dreading Sunday because Monday comes after and it's a work day, then I feel for you as well. And know that you are not alone. There are people around that don't like holidays because it does bring back times of maybe lost loved ones or traditions that are broken, or it just brings back hard times. So for some, holiday seasons are fun and awesome. Let's just be mindful for some people that, are struggling during a holiday season. If you're struggling, just know that I love you and everything's going to be okay. This moment will pass. Be kind to yourself, do things that, fill up your cup. If it's starting a new tradition, go for it. If it's just kind of chilling at home and watching movies, go for it. If it's going to church for the first time, go for it. Sometimes we just got to do what's best for us, and what's best for us, it's different than everyone else. So I just wanted to make note of that because, while holiday seasons are exciting for some, it's really tough for others. So today's episode, we are going to talk about how to overcome setbacks in our healing journey. I wanted to talk about this today because, I don't know, I just feel like recently, like the last week, honestly, just this year, but really, I focus it on one thing at a time. So the last week has just been really hard. I just feel like I've hit setbacks after setbacks, and then realizing that, it's a part of the healing journey. Like just accepting the fact that a setback is part of life and it's out of my control. It's sometimes just a hard thing to just agree with, Obviously we work hard as we're healing different things. We work hard in life and we just want things to go right. But boom, setback happens. Boom, setback happens. So I felt the need to talk about it today because that's kind of what I've been going through. I don't know if you've been going through any setbacks. Maybe you had a great week, and if you did, I'm happy for you. Maybe you had the best week, and I'm happy for you. But I know there's some people out there that are like, oh my gosh, it feels like everything is just going in the wrong direction. It feels like everything I done and worked so hard for is for nothing. And if that's how you feel, then this episode is for you because that is not the case. So today we're going to talk about what a setback is. We're going to talk about some examples of setbacks. We're going to talk about why we have setbacks. Why are setbacks a part of our healing journey or in life in general? And we're going to talk about how we can overcome them. I always want to end with the positives. How can we overcome it? How can we manage them? Because there's always a way to. We might not be able to get rid of them because it is out of our control, but there's a way we can overcome them, whether it's looking at it from a different perspective, whether it's, doing something differently. But yeah, I always want to provide an opportunity for us to learn about the thing and figure out steps on how we can deal with it, how we can overcome it. So, what is a setback? According to Cambridge Dictionary, a setback is something that causes delay or stops progress. That's it. That's a setback. It's stopping us from progressing from something. Maybe you're taking the test and you failed. Boom, you failed your nursing exam. Boom, you failed your social work exam. Boom, you failed it, and it's preventing you from the next step. It's preventing you from getting that job. It's preventing you from graduating. It's preventing you from finally making the income you want. It's preventing you from your dream job, or it's delaying it. It's delaying it. You had it in your head that you were going to do this, 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 but then here's this big roadblock. You know how like you're driving and you see a construction site and it's like stop, detour, and it's delaying you to getting to work, right? It's delaying you from being to work on time because now you have to stop, and they flip the sign that says stop, and then you have to go when they flip it over and it says slow and you can go, but it delays your time. It delays the progress to get to the next side, to get to work on time, to get to your destination on time. It delays you and it stops you from your progress. Setbacks are hard. They are so hard. It's so hard to see it from the other side. I think it's a lot easier when you're out of the setback, but I think we have to get to a point where we can still see that our growth in the setback, because depending on the setback, it can take us back. I mean, sometimes we can have something that is so detrimental to us happen at the wrong time on top of things, and it keeps piling up, and then you just want to give up. You're like, forget it. I'm done with school. Forget it. I'm done with this relationship. Forget it. I'm done with this, right? But I think it's through the setback we really have to be aware and still see that we're going to get to the other side. And maybe if we don't get there the way we want, we're still going to get through it, We're still going to get through the moment. So what are some examples of setbacks? I gave an example already, school, maybe failing school, losing a job, divorce, illnesses, mental health struggles, financial struggles, even losing games, Professionals, maybe they're on a winning streak and then they have a setback. They lose a couple games and now that delays them getting into the playoffs or different things like that. Breakups, friendship breakups, but also intimate relationship breakups, or any like unexpected change or circumstance. So those are some examples. I kind of want to talk about a setback that I had this week, and it might sound little to you guys, but it was big to me, and that's all that matters. I think another thing about a setback and overcoming it is just kind of knowing yourself, knowing what you've been through, and realizing that, wow, even though this was a setback, how did I handle it? How did I handle this moment? Did I go back to old behaviors, or did I use my new behaviors and the problem resolved, or maybe it's getting better, or I can still just focus on the new thing I've done? So for example, one thing that I struggled with, which I told you guys before, was like intrusive thoughts and just anxiety. And I might have shared dreams sometimes. Like I might wake up in a panic. Well, most of the time when I wake up, I'm mostly anxious anyway, but sometimes depending on the day, sometimes I literally wake up with an anxiety attack, and it's super scary and bad, because it's like you feel like you can't breathe, like you think whatever you were dreaming is really happening. It's just like a terror, like it's pretty bad. So that is something that I struggled with a lot, especially going through everything with my breaking moment. And there was times where sometimes I wouldn't even get much sleep. Like, I mean, I was sleeping, I think sometimes I was getting a maximum of like 4 or 5 hours. Like I was constantly getting less than 4 or 5 hours of sleep while still trying to maintain a relationship, friendships, school, softball, working 2 jobs. It was insane. But so yes, I've struggled with intrusive thoughts really bad, and I've struggled with like dreams and just kind of waking up because of the nightmares and things. So the other day I had a really bad dream that I'm not going to go in depth about. That's a whole nother story, but it was a dream that was very triggering to me. And, I woke up with an anxiety attack. Like I definitely woke up. My heart rate was up. I kind of felt like I was in that fog, like I was still in that dream. And sometimes with the dream, you still feel like you're in it. So it just throws you off balance. And, before when that has happened, I would cry, I would stay up, because now I was too paranoid to go back to sleep, right? I'm sure we all have had a dream where it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot go back to sleep after that. Or what does that dream mean? You start overthinking it, or we just, I don't know, it just messes with us, right? We kind of feel like we're still living in the dream. We kind of just feel a little weird. Like, it's just, yeah. So usually I would either, cry about it, which is fine. Crying is fine. I would stay up. I would feel like I need to talk to someone right away, which also can be fine. Well, depending on the time, I would, and I think the most thing I would stay up, which obviously would negatively affect my day if I stayed up. How am I supposed to perform at work? How am I supposed to perform at, when I was playing sports and different things like that, because I'm exhausted. So anyway, long story short, instead of doing the old things that I would have done, and let's just say, like, sometimes depending on the dream, it would make me so scared that, like, even the night after that, I would kind of like be fearful to go back to sleep. So it would be like a cycle. And then like I would be staying up late. Like that was my negative cycle, was just being fearful of dreams, or being fearful of sleeping, because I knew I was going to wake up an anxiety attack. I just knew it. Or I knew I was going to have a bad dream. So I kept overthinking it, thinking it was just going to keep happening. I didn't just trust the moment. Like, okay, it was a bad dream. That doesn't mean it's going to always be a bad dream. But anyway, that was my negative cycle. But this time when it happened, I woke up, I was, oh my goodness. And I literally practiced. I was so proud of myself, guys. I practiced every single thing that I've been talking about in therapy, that I've been working on by myself, that I've been praying about. And I utilized my breathing, so doing my breaths. I utilized my grounding techniques, which I shared before, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things you see, 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. I utilized that. I did my breathing. I changed the channel on the TV to something that calms me, which was like ocean, the beach with the water. And then one thing they said, it is big when you are feeling very anxious, it's just grounding and sensation. So I had my water bottle, and I started drinking cold water, and I started to put the cold water bottle on like my neck, my face, my legs. And let me just tell you, and then I started looking up scripture specifically for dreams. Like, that's been a big thing for me. Whatever I'm going through, I try to find scripture specifically for what I'm going through. And there was I can't remember off the top of my head what it was called, but there was a verse that talked about like night terrors and different things like that. So doing all these things actually helped to ground me to the present moment. I was able to realize that it was just a dream, and I was able to kind of, grounding myself helped me to get out of the reality that I was still in the dream, because I wasn't. And then, the scriptures kind of gave me the encouragement that God is still with me, that even though this moment happened, God still reminded me of what I needed to do. And I was able to be okay. And I mean, like, within a reasonable time. Like, I didn't stay up for 2, 3, 4 hours. This was like a 30-minute process, which was really nice. This is like progress for me, because before, this could have been a whole cycle where I wouldn't have went to sleep, and then the night after, I wouldn't have went to sleep, or I would have only slept for 2 hours because I would have been paranoid. So anyway, that at first felt like a setback, because it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a bad dream like this that has caused me this fear in a long time. What does this mean? Does this mean that all that work I did was for nothing? Does this mean that I'm going backwards? But it was like, no, this is where I can see that all that work I've done show up in the moment, because I never would have done that if I didn't learn all the things I learned. I never would have thought to look for scriptures if I didn't gain a connection with God. I would never thought to ground myself if I didn't learn those techniques in therapy and being a family-based therapist and just doing the work myself. So I know that was a long story, but I wanted to share, because this week I just had so many, I felt like were setbacks, and kind of were setbacks because it still kind of changed my mindset of how I was doing. But then realizing that setbacks are ways to see us grow. It was like, it started off as a setback, but it reminded me of like, oh my gosh, Regine, you are capable of overcoming this moment. Remember, you know what to do. You take your breaths, ground yourself, do this. And then when I did it, I was so proud of myself. So what started off as, oh my gosh, panic attack, I can't do this, ended with, wow, I'm proud of myself. because when this moment presented itself, I didn't go into that spiral like I used to. What I did was utilize what I learned, and I overcame the moment, and it helped me to see my resilience. And now I love myself a little bit more, and I'm proud of myself, and it made my week go by, and I felt super like, all right, world, like, let's go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just empowered me. So I'm going to give another example, but that was a long example, but that was one setback that I had this week. So why do we have setbacks? It's a part of life. It just is a part of life, and it's something out of our control. And if you listen to the last episode where I talked about, I forget the title of it. I have so many episodes now, but I know it talks about choice. I think it's the power of choice. That's what it was called. And one of the things I talked about in that episode was focusing on things in and out of our control. So boom, a setback is out of your control. It is completely out of your control. So you can sit here and choose to dwell on the setback. Like, oh my gosh, I'm having the bad dream again. I'm going backwards. This happened when I was going through a rough time. That means I'm going through a rough time now. That means that cycle's going to start again. Or you can choose to say, hold on, I've talked about this moment before. I know what to do in this moment. So let me use the skills and the things that I have learned to overcome this moment. You have a choice in how you respond to the setback, but you cannot control the setback. So why do we have them? It's just a part of life. There's not really reasons, I think, for setbacks. I just think it's part of life, and it's out of our control. I think setbacks teach us about our strength and our resilience. Like I just shared about it. Like that moment that started off as, oh my gosh, I'm going backwards. Oh my gosh, this time is triggering because it reminds me of when I was going through everything. And that was the worst time of my life, one of the worst times of my life. But instead of just allowing those thoughts to spiral in the moment to grow in a negative way, it's about choosing how you respond to it. What can I do right now? And looking back now, I'm like, whoa, look at all that stuff. Look at all that I've learned. Look at all that I've learned in this moment. Look at how much I've grown in the last 3 years, because that's what you have to look at, is how did I handle the situation, right? Our healing journey, right? There's things that we went through that in the past we might have not responded the way we do now because of all the things we have been learning in our healing journey. You might not deal with a relationship like you used to in the past, right? Because you've learned something from it. You've learned your strength. You learned what you like. You learned what you didn't like. You might not go to certain jobs anymore, or you might not handle yourself the same way you used to at a job because you've experienced the burnout. You've experienced being compassion fatigue. You've experienced secondary trauma. You've experienced things, right? Setbacks, I think they teach us about us. What are our strengths? They teach us how resilient we are. We can look back and say, whoa, I know 2 years ago, that moment would have taken me out. That moment I would have went back to this habit. I would have went back to that. I would have allowed this moment to consume my week. But you know what? This time it only consumed 10 minutes. Or you know what? This time it only consumed a day. That is progress. And I think so much, and I'm saying this because I do it too. It isn't until I really sit with myself and journal, or I sit with myself and pray, or I sit with myself and I really think about it. But I think we think that our healing journey is just supposed to be linear. Like we say, all right, we're going to fix this and it's just going to go up from here. Like, no, how else can you see that you're learning if you're not going to have things that come up? It's about seeing how you respond now, because you are learning. You're not where you used to be. You're not where you used to be a year ago. There's no way you're where you used to be 2 years ago. You've grown in a different way. And I think it's about seeing the setbacks help us to see that. If we never had setbacks, if we never had things that we had to overcome, how would we see our resilience? And when we see our resilience and our strength, that's our source. That's our evidence that, hold on, let me go to page 2. Regine, remember when you did this? You can overcome this. That is our evidence to overcoming the next setback. That's going to help us to overcome the next thing. It teaches us a lesson about ourselves. It teaches us about who we are, the resilience we have, the strength we have. Why do we have setbacks? It just helps us see our growth. If that setback didn't happen, I wouldn't have seen that. Wow, like I handled this so well. 3 years ago, I wouldn't have handled that well. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have handled that well. And it's about you too, because everyone's setback and everyone's journey is different. So someone else might be listening to me and being like, I don't have problems with dreams. That's fine. I don't have problems with thoughts, intrusive thoughts, whatever. That's fine. But everyone has something that they're struggling with. Everyone has something in their healing journey that is going to come back and trigger you. But it's about all the things that you have been learning, all the things, all the skills that you have gained, all the coping skills that you've developed that you can now implement to see where you're at. And it isn't until the setback hits to really see where you are, right? If nothing ever goes wrong, how are you going to see that? So it helps us to see our growth. And I've shared this Bible verse before. It's John chapter 16, verse 33. And it says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. I just think that speaks so much volumes in this, because God is saying we're going to have trouble. A setback can be trouble to you. It can cause you to be triggered. It can cause you to be fearful. It can cause you to be upset. It can cause you to feel alone. It can cause you to feel like you're going backwards. It can cause you to feel like all that work you've done was for nothing. But God said you're going to have the trouble. It's going to be there, but have peace, because He has already overcome the world. God is with you through it. God already knows everything you're going to go through, every struggle, every heartache, every heartbreak, every bad dream, every time you feel inadequate, everything. So even though that trouble's present, even though the breakup's there, even though the divorce is happening, even though you're separated, like God, that's your trouble. God knows that already. But don't be upset. Don't be fearful. He's overcome the world. He has victory over the world. He already has been there. That's why Jesus died for our sins. So why do we have setbacks? It's just something I just want out of that. I just want us to know that it's out of our control, because we can't just sit and never have nothing go wrong. I mean, I just gave the simple example of construction. That might set you back from work, being on time. Maybe you're a person that's always late too. You can't afford to be late again. Darn, construction, setback. Now I'm going to be late, delaying my progress to get to work. Setbacks just happen, but I think it's really about how we learn to respond to them, how we can see that opportunity as a moment of growth. The other day, I had this thought the other day for my athletes, think about it. We practice consistently, whether you're playing softball, football, field hockey, cross country, running, track, whatever the sport may be, you practice. Then you have the game to perform. Or my people in school, right? You go to class, you learn the material, the teacher's providing you what you need, and then you usually take a test, or you usually write the paper based off of what was taught or what you had to learn. And then the test dictates kind of like where you're at. The game dictates, okay, what do we need to learn? What can we, okay, we won 6-3, cool, but we could have done this better. Or we lost 3-6, oh, we didn't hit good. We didn't, our offense was bad, whatever. So what's the difference of life, right? We learn different things about ourselves. We might go to therapy to learn about our troubles or traumas and different things. And now we got to go out into the world and put those things to use. What use is it if you're just going to just sit in therapy and talk about it? You got to use the things you talk about, the coping skills that you have. Put it into the game and see how it works out. See where you're really at. Church, same thing. You go to church, you might go to Bible study, wherever you go, or you listen to the sermon online and you hear about a message that a preacher's giving you about God's word, about something to encourage you, and then boom, something happens, and then it's like, I'm about to cuss them out. Or are you going to remember what that preacher was saying about sins, about, holding the tongue, you know what I mean? Like, things are going to be put to the test. Preacher talks about patience, and here you are trying to make everything happen. Are you really being patient? Are you in the game? Are you utilizing what you've been taught? Are you utilizing what you've been practicing into the real world? I just want us to think about that, because I really do think that's kind of like, that's life. Like, I really think that So much of life is all the things that we learn, all the mistakes we've learned, maybe the childhood trauma that we thought set us back. But now you're learning to unlearn those things. So now when you're given a situation where there's something similar, do you stay? Do you leave? Do you, speak your truth? Are you honest with yourself? Like, what are you going to do differently that you learn from your childhood? And I know sometimes it's not as it's easier said than done. And that's why I always stress how extremely hard it is, but I want us to get out of sitting at it's hard. We got to start taking little steps, little baby steps, and being proud of those little baby steps. You know what I mean? Like, man, I usually would have done this for 3 weeks, but now I only do it for 2 weeks. And you know what? In our head, we think that healing is perfect. So it's like, oh, well, I still failed because I'm still doing it. But that's not the truth. You still have progress. The only way we're going to really get to where we want is to be proud of the little things. And if where we want is to never go through bad things and never have setbacks, then we have unachievable expectations. And that's something that I still struggle with today, because sometimes I still think that the goal is to never have bad dreams. The goal is to never have intrusive thoughts. The goal is to never be a people pleaser. The goal is to never this and that. But let's be real here. Like, nobody's perfect. So you can try to achieve that, but that is, I don't mean to be the Debbie Downer, but that is something that is unachievable, because nobody's perfect. We're always going to have things that come up, setbacks that happen, triggers that come up, but all we can control is how we respond to that thing. Another example that I wanted to talk about was even just my breaking moment. Like, I really thought that 3 years ago, when I was going through the anxiety, the anxiety attacks, just probably one of the worst times in my life, what I call the breaking moment that I had. I thought that was a setback, big time. I mean, I thought it was worse than setback. I thought my life was ending. Like, it sounds dramatic, but let's be real here, right? When we're going through a really tough time and we don't even understand it, I had no idea what I was going through. I never knew I had anxiety. I never really had triggers, or if I did, I was unaware of them. I thought I lost my mind. I thought God gave up on me. Like, who else has felt that way? Like, I'm being so real here. And I thought that was a setback. I thought that was God giving up on me. I thought that was so many things. But that setback, I still finished school and different things like that, but just that was such a big mental and physical and just so many other things setbacks. It changed relationships for me. It changed just so many things. And all I can say is, now looking back, I'm able to see why it had to happen. I'm able to see that. I'm able to see how resilient I was. I still pushed through school. Like, I mean, sometimes one of the best things I feel like I've heard is just, like, be kind to everyone, because you really don't know what people are going through. And I remember, like, I'm that person. I don't like when people worry about me. I don't. So I'll never forget, and I might have never shared this, but, like, at one point during my senior year of college, I feel like that's your prime time. Like, you about to graduate. Like, everyone's excited, but, like, that was probably one of the worst years of my life. And no one probably knew that, because I'm not a person to be like, hey, I'm going through a rough time. I had too much pride, but now I can say it. I'll say it. I'll say I'm struggling, because it's about being honest with yourself and the people around you, because we're human. But instead of going out partying, I was probably crying in my room every day. I was calling home. I wanted to come back home. I was calling my boyfriend all the time at the time. I just wanted to be home, because I didn't know what was going on with me. I thought I was losing my mind. I was scared. I was frustrated. I was upset. I was just experiencing so many things that I just didn't have answers for. And, but now I look back and I see the resilience of me, for one, just seeking help. The old Regine would have never did it. I would have still pushed through and would have known anything, right? But it came to a point where I knew what I was going through was a lot more than I could handle. So that's when I seeked help. That's strength to me, because before I thought strength was not saying anything, but it takes courage to say, I need help. It takes courage to say, I'm not okay, because what point are you proving? You're only hurting yourself. And it took me to say, Mom, Dad, something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong, but I need help. It took me to say that. And I started going to therapy. I started setting boundaries. I started to lose friends because I was setting boundaries and protecting myself with different things. And Now I'm looking back and I see that even though it looked like a setback at the time, because I'm like, God, what is going on? What is happening? I'm about to graduate. Why am I going through this really tough mental time? I have no idea. But that has just pushed me to where I need to be. Here I am. I don't think I ever would have created a podcast if I didn't go through what I went through, because I don't want anyone else to feel like they're alone in it. I don't want anyone else to feel like they can't do it, or to feel like they're too much, to feel like they don't matter, to feel like they're alone. Like, you're not. Like, everyone goes through it. And I don't think if I went through that, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing. So this pushed me in the right direction to go towards creating a podcast, to go towards becoming the family-based therapist that I am, and just doing the things that I'm doing I would have never done if I didn't go through what I went through. Pretty much is how it's said. So that setback helped me to see my resilience, helped me to see that it caused me to really see my purpose in life, it caused me to really see where I want to go and things that I want to do. It caused me to see my strength. I still pushed through and graduated. It was hard as heck. Like, I don't know how I did it. That's why, I'm just always grateful to God, because you just had to be there. I can't even explain it, but just the fact that I pushed through. And not only that, I pushed through and got my master's degree. Like, I don't know how, but my strength, at probably one of the worst times of my life, I still dug in and I did it. I still pushed through. I still talked about it. I still sought help. I showed my strength. I showed myself that I care about myself, because I said, I need help. I'm going to seek and talk to my friends about this. I'm going to seek and talk to my family about this, and different things like that. You never know what the setback is teaching you, you never know what the setback is preparing you for. And the setback helps you to really see, helps you to see where you're at. Where are you at with it? Like, all those things you practice, all those things you preach, all those things you do. What are you going to do when that moment comes up? When it's game time. It's game time. What are you going to do? And that's kind of how I like to look at it. I think when we look at it from that perspective, it changes things a little bit. Because we can sit, like I said, and woo-hoo about it. Because I woo-hoo about it sometimes. But then I said, nope. Like, it even took to the day that happened with my dream. I talked to my mom a little bit, and I was just telling her how it feels like I'm going backwards because of this one thing. And how many of us just feel like when something that used to bother us or trigger us or whatever comes back, it's almost like I did everything for nothing. But it's like, no. This is part of life, but it's about how I respond to it. This is going to teach me and show me me. It's going to show me my strength, and it's going to push me forward and to the next thing. And then when something else happens, I'm going to look back and say, oh, I already overcame this. I already went through this. I can overcome it again. And it was like, my mom actually, it's crazy. She was like, you have a choice. My mom, this is crazy. My mom used the thing that I provide for you guys to me. She said, hold on, don't you have a choice? And I was like, oh, snap. So I went back and listened to my episode, and it encouraged me. And I was like, look at this. My own messages are helping me to get through it. Like, it's amazing. So anyway, how do we overcome setbacks? Try to learn from them. We try to learn, what can I learn in this moment? What did this moment teach me? Find the positives. From learning about it, I learned that, wow, I'm stronger than I thought. I learned that, wow, I'm really a good listener. I learned that, wow, I'm really good with handling this situation. Find the positives. Another thing, be kind and compassionate to yourself. I will forever and always say this. When you're healing, when you're in your healing journey, you always have to be kind and compassionate, because you're doing the best you can, right? You're doing the best you can with what you know. And maybe 10 years ago, you didn't know the things you know now. So be compassionate to the person you are now, because look how much you've already learned. Look how much you've grown. And I think that's how we grow in life. I think that's how we really allow ourselves to be all we can be, is when we're compassionate, because there are some things that are just going to be, healing is a lifelong journey. So if you're going to be in this journey with yourself, you might as well be kind. I mean, what is yelling at yourself, being mad at yourself? How's that going to help you? Like, how's it going to help you? Exactly. It probably isn't. So be kind and compassionate, because you're trying to unlearn things that you might have done for 20 plus years, 10 plus years. You're trying to break a generational curse that's been in your family for 3, 4 generations, you know? You're trying to be a better you. So just be kind and compassionate to yourself. I always say this. Think about that best friend you got. She's crying to you. She's upset, or he's crying. He's upset. I don't know what to do. Everything just keeps going wrong. I just want to give up. I doubt you're just going to say, get out my face. Deal with it. Bye. It is what it is. You probably would say a encouraging word. You probably maybe sit there with them and let them hold that space to cry. Treat yourself like you would treat your best friend. And hopefully that's good. I'm saying it as if you would treat your best friend good. Or someone, maybe not your best friend, maybe your mom, maybe your dad, someone that you're close to, maybe your kid. That just opens space for us to just allow ourselves to be vulnerable and just to allow us to accept where we're at, you know, accept it. Doesn't mean you like it, you're just accepting it. Keep moving forward. How many times do we get a setback and we say, well, this happened, I'm going backwards. I guess I'll just keep doing the behavior. It is what it is. No. The setback isn't for you to go backwards. The setback is to see what you're going to do next. What are you going to do about it? What can you control in this moment? How can you respond to this moment? Don't allow it to make you go backwards. It's going to feel like you're going backwards, but it's all about how you look at that situation and respond to it. Seek support and help, or talk to someone you trust. That's big, because sometimes, like I just said the other day, I just Mom, man, I just feel like I'm going backwards because this is something I struggled with really bad back then, and I don't know what to do. And you know what to do. Sometimes you just need that encouraging word. Sometimes you just need to talk about it. And sometimes it's hard to get out of that funk yourself, and having that person you trust, having that therapist or whoever to kind of remind you. It's okay to be reminded. It's okay to say, I'm just tired. I can't do it today. And it's okay for that. It's okay to do that. And praise your growth and accomplishments. Praise those little things. Like I said, I just thought of another example, at work. My job is very, very a lot. Like I share, I'm a family-based therapist, so I help families with their kids. And kids go through, it's a variety of different things. It could be aggression, it could be suicide ideations, it could be homicide ideations. They could do self-harm. It's so many things that these kids go through, and it's a lot. And a lot of times, families, when they come to us, it's at the point where they're like, I don't know what else to do. So, they're constantly calling and different things. And something that triggers me now, because I'm learning boundaries, is when someone's not, following my boundaries. And some of this job, because I've had job burnout, requires, keeping your phone on. I mean, keeping your phone on, turning it off when hours are off. But it's just kind of every day is different. There's no 8 to 5. It's sometimes I have a session at 3. Sometimes I have a session at 9 in the morning. Sometimes I have a session at 4 p.m. There's no consistency sometimes. It just depends on what people can do. And sometimes it's a good thing, but sometimes it can be triggering to me. So instead of allowing that to consume me and think that I'm going backwards, I just reminded myself that the way I can control this moment is to, enforce boundaries. So saying to clients hey, my phone's on from this time to this time. So if it's off, I will get back to you the next day. And I'm proud of that, because the old Regine would have kept her phone on because she cares so much and she doesn't want, this to happen and then not be there for her clients and not be there for someone. But it's whoa, if I can't take care of my own mental health, if I can't unwind, if I can't be my best self, then I can't help my clients. I can't help my family. I can't be who I want to be for the people that I care about, for my clients, for my family, whoever. So that might sound small to someone else, but that's growth to me, because there was a time where maybe I didn't turn my phone off. Or maybe if someone said, hey, Regine, can you come in? Hey, Regine, can you work an extra 3 hours? I would have said, yep. Because I didn't want to disappoint. I don't want to disappoint nobody. But my growth is saying, you know what? I'm so sorry. When I start work and when it's this time and this time, I'm available. When it's after that time and before that time, I'm not available. And being honest with myself. Sometimes, sorry, I can't do that. I can't, That's growth. So being proud of the little things, because those little things matter. Those little things have gotten me to where I am, where I'm able to set boundaries because I went through burnout, because I went through compassion fatigue, because I always said yes, because I always showed up and did more than I needed to do, because I always stayed after for work. And I used this statement before, something that my therapist taught me, even though, nevertheless. So even though I'm struggling with my thoughts right now, nevertheless, I'm journaling, I'm writing about it, I'm talking about it. So it's kind of reminding yourself like, even though this is happening, nevertheless, what am I doing about it? I'm doing something about it, because there was a time where I didn't do anything about it. I just was sat in the thoughts, let them consume me, cry about them, allow that to control my day, be sad, need validation, like, depending on who you are, but like try that even though nevertheless statement. So that's all I have today. So in closing, I just want you to know healing is not linear. It is not linear. You are going to have some great days. I mean, some days you're like, wow, life is good. Yes, yes, yes. You're going to have some days where it's like, all right, well, today wasn't too bad. It's whatever. You're going to have some days where it's like, oh my gosh, I went through all that healing for however long for this to happen. Why? And you're just going to feel like you messed up. You're going to feel like it was for nothing. Like, I mean, when I mean it's not linear, it's really not. But I think just knowing that, healing is not linear is helpful, because even when I started my journey, I thought that's what healing was. Never having to go through the things you went through. But it's not, because you went through the things you went through. You went through the trauma you went through. You went through the breakup you went through. Like, you can't change that you went through it. You can't change that those things happen to you, but we can control how we respond to it. We can control what we do in those moments. Are we beating ourselves up about it? Are we speaking kind words to ourselves? Are we grounding ourselves in the anxious moment? Or are we allowing our anxious thoughts to prevent us from going there, from going to the party, from going to church, from going to the event? Are we letting it make us stay comfortable and never do anything uncomfortable? I want you to know that all you can do is your best. I think I said this before. Do your best and let God do the rest. And that goes a long way, because all you can do is your best. You can't control the outcome. You don't know when the next setback's going to be. It could be after you listen to this episode. It could be tomorrow. It could be on Easter. Who knows? But we can't live life wondering when. We just have to know that we are equipped for our situation. And that's all we can do. I want us to don't give up. Do not give up. No matter what it feels like, no matter what you think you thought it was, don't give up. You've come so far. You are doing a great job. Remember that there are stages to change. I talked about that in many episodes. There's stages for a reason. And that means you're going to have days where it feels like you're going up the ladder and then going back down and then going back up and then going back down, or staying stagnant or not moving at all, I want you to know you are not alone. You are not alone. I just talked about a setback I had just this week. I'm sure there will be more. And guess what? No, I'm not looking forward to them, but I know that I'm capable of overcoming them. And that's the way we talk to ourselves. No one's excited for a setback. Well, some people might be. I know I'm not. I don't like them. It's out of my control. I don't know the result. I don't like the feeling of it. But I do know, because I have receipts, because I have evidence of the past things that I've done and the times I've overcome it, that I will overcome the next one. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I do not overcome it. So you are not alone. And I want us to acknowledge that setbacks are normal. They are normal. You're not going backwards. You did not do all that for nothing. You've learned something through it. And now it's time to apply what you learned to what you're going through. Now it's time to take the test. Are we going to pass or are we going to fail? And if we fail, we're going to do what? Keep moving forward. And that's kind of rough. That's kind of tough. There's no failing. It's life, But what are we going to do in that moment is what I mean. What are we going to do? It's about all those things you practice and putting it to the test and seeing. And now you can look back and say, wow, look what I did. I've overcome that. I want us to be hype about our progress. I want us to be hype about how we overcame that setback, because that's big. And if you overcame a setback this week, I am so proud of you, and you keep going, and I'm rooting for you, because you're not in it by yourself. I'm here with you. And that's a wrap. I love you guys. Happy Easter. Happy Good Friday. Enjoy your holidays, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Break-In Moment podcast. If this information was helpful, please share it with others. And if you enjoy listening, subscribe to the podcast so you can get the latest episodes. You can listen to the Break-In Moment podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast.